Hello children, in the first video we discussed acceleration due to gravity in various formats on the surface, inside earth, at the center, at height above and also depending on the latitude of the body. And then we found that actually acceleration due to gravity is maximum on the surface of earth, right. Now we understand that whenever two objects are placed in close proximity or even they are separated by long distance, the force of gravity is always acting between them, right. And we also know that force of gravity is a central force. Now we are going to discuss orbital velocity, the velocity with which a satellite moves around earth, and the expression we will be deriving can be generalized for other objects also. Clear? So you are going to see orbital velocity. Now children, let us imagine this is earth, right, radius of earth is r, and a satellite is revolving around earth at distance h from the surface of earth. Now the velocity with which this satellite revolves around earth is called orbital velocity of satellite, and we are denoting it by what? VO. The satellite is here. Mass of satellite is what? M, and as you know mass of earth is how much of me. As you will be seeing children, the orbital velocity of the satellite actually does not depend upon the mass of the satellite. It is independent of the mass of the satellite. Now we are assuming that distance of the satellite from the center of earth, the surface of earth is how much? H. Now when this satellite will move along a circular path, you know for motion along a circular path one centripetal force is required, and we have already discussed that this necessary centripetal force is provided by the earth's gravitational force acting on the satellite, and this force is acting where? This force is acting inside toward the center of earth, and by very nature the gravitational force is what force? A central force. So remember children that when the satellite will be revolving around earth at height h from the surface, then the necessary centripetal force is provided by the what? The gravitational force of earth on the satellite. So let us make certain assumptions. Therefore, centripetal force F will be children how much? M is equal to gravitational force. So G MEM divided by RE plus H whole square. So children, this is the centripetal force F, and this value will be equal to how much? mv naught square by RE plus H. So you know the centripetal force is provided by the gravitational force. So the gravitational force is G MEM by RE plus H whole square, and we know its value is equal to mv square by R, and R is how much? RE plus H. Now if you equate these two, then by equating children, what do we get? By equating we get m v naught square divided by RE plus H is equal to G MEM by RE plus H whole square. Now children, we cancel out the common terms, m and m we are cancelling out, RE plus H is also cancelling. So finally what you are left here is v naught square is equal to GME by RE plus H, and this expression gives us the orbital velocity of the satellite. If you take square root, then VO becomes root over GME divided by RE plus H. So children, if there is a satellite which is revolving around earth at a height h from the surface, then its orbital velocity is GME upon RE plus H. Now commonly used satellites, military satellites, weather satellites, communication satellites, they are generally very close towards what? Surface. So we will take a special case if h is very small compared to RE. For example, radius of Earth is around 6400 kilometers and height of the satellite from the Earth's surface is how much? Say around 40 kilometers. So, H plus RE will be nearly equal to how much here? RE. I can write RE plus H is nearly equal to RE. Clear? Now, if you put this value out here, then VO becomes root over GME divided by RE, and this becomes orbital velocity for a satellite which is revolving very close to Earth. Now we can modify this equation again. Remember, we can easily transform GME because GME this calculation becomes slightly what? Bigger. So we can transform this value in terms of acceleration due to gravity. If you remember, then value of acceleration due to gravity is GME by RE square. If you cross multiply children, then GRE is equal to GME, and you should remember this value. We'll be using it very often. We'll not be putting the values of G and ME, instead we'll be using GME is equal to GRE square. Clear? Let's name these equations. This is equation 1, this is equation 2, and this is equation 3. So what I'll do is, I'll put the value of GME in equation 2. Putting the value of GME in equation 2, we get VO is equal to G into RE square divided by RE. If you cancel out a common factor, then VO becomes root over GRE. So children, this is orbital velocity of a satellite which is revolving very close to Earth. And now we can actually calculate what will be this velocity. And remember, at every point of motion, this is Earth, this is the satellite, right? The satellite's velocity is always what velocity? Tangential velocity around Earth. This is radius of Earth. Okay? We can actually calculate how much will be the orbital velocity of a satellite which is very close to Earth. We know that G is equal to how much? 9.8 meter per second square, and radius of Earth is 6400 kilometers, which is 64 into 10 power 5 meter. If we substitute all these values here, then orbital velocity for Earth will be 9.8. So this comes to be nearly 5600 root 2 meter per second, which is extremely high. Clear? So if a satellite is revolving close to Earth, then its orbital velocity will be root GRE. Its value will be 5600 root 2 meter per second, which is very high. So we understood what will be the orbital velocity of a satellite if it is close to Earth, and also what will be its orbital velocity when it is at height h from Earth's what? Surface. Clear? But you have to remember that during all this time, the necessary centripetal force is provided by the gravitational force of Earth acting on the satellite. Yes? And the second thing, that orbital velocity, if you see children, it is not depending upon mass of the body m. It is not depending on the mass of the body m. Now we can generalize this equation by taking, it is not necessary that you have to calculate orbital velocity for Earth only. You can generalize for any planet and its what? Satellite. Okay? Easily. Now children, so we derive an expression for orbital velocity at a height h from Earth's surface. Orbital velocity VO is equal to root over GME by RE plus H. Yes, this is case 1. Case 2, if H is very small compared to RE, meaning the satellite is very close to Earth, then the orbital velocity becomes GME by RE, which is root over GRE, and its value came to be 5600 root 2 meter per second. Now, like I said, that we can modify this equation for any other planet and its what? Satellite. So we can also be written as gm by r. Suppose you are calculating what will be the velocity, orbital velocity of a satellite which is revolving on a Jupiter, for example. So every mass of Jupiter, and r will be radius of the path of the satellite. Okay. So here we have replaced mass of Earth by m, and we replace re plus h by r. So this is generalized expression for calculating orbital velocity for a planet, for a satellite which is on some other planet, which you can easily modify. Clear? Now if a satellite is revolving around a bigger mass, capital M, having what radius of its path? r, then this will be the orbital velocity. Now children, we will try to derive what is the time period of the satellite. When the satellite is following the circular orbit of radius what? re plus h, the amount of time it takes to complete one full cycle is called what? Its time period. Clear? So clearly we can write here time period of satellite t is equal to 2 pi re plus h by orbital velocity. In fact, this is a very simple formula I am using. T is equal to distance, distance is 2 pi r by velocity. Same thing, r is equal to re plus h. Clear? But children, just now we derived Vo is equal to root over GME divided by what? Re plus h. So if I put this value out here, then how much is time period? 2 pi re plus h divided by root over GME divided by re plus h. When you simplify, the denominator goes up. So how much do we get? T is equal to 2 pi re plus h root over re plus h divided by GM. And this can be simplified and written T is equal to 2 pi re plus h to the power 3 by 2 divided by root GM. And if I take everything under the root, if I take these two terms under the square root because the power is half, then I can also write 2 pi root over re plus h whole cube divided by GME. So this expression actually forms the basis of Kepler's law of periods, which is the third law. Let us see how. I will be writing re plus h is equal to r, meaning I am writing a unified symbol where r is this whole distance, which will be the radius of the circular path followed by the satellite. If I put it here, then T will be equal to 2 pi square root of r cube by GME, right? And if I square both sides, children, if I square, then T square will be how much? 4 pi square by GME into r cube. Now you can see that 4 pi square and GME, these terms are constants. So we can say T square is directly equal to what? Cube. And this cube is actually the what? Mean distance of the satellite from what? The center of Earth. And now, if planet is revolving around sun, then r becomes what? R becomes the mean distance from sun. Mean distance of the planet from the sun. Suppose the sun is here and the planet is here. So the distance is r, and the time period T square is directly equal to r cube, where r is the mean distance. In the first lecture, I think I discussed what is the mean distance. It is distance from perigee plus distance from apogee divided by 2, right? And this is Kepler's third law. The square of time period is directly proportional to cube of mean distance from the sun, right? So this is actually the origin. We can calculate what is the time period. You can use this equation or this equation for that matter. And also we derive all the expressions for calculating what is the orbital velocity. Now we'll be seeing a typical problem. Once you have understood the orbital velocity, we'll be solving a problem involving 3 equal masses. Okay, let's say this. Now children, here we have a question, typical problem. 3 particular masses each are placed at the vertices of an equilateral triangle having each side of length A. Then the question says they start moving along a circular path under the mutual gravitational force, and then they are asking number 1, what is net force on each particle, and also calculate orbital velocity. Let's try to understand, children. Let's name this triangle as A, B, C, and at each one of these points we have a point mass m. Correct? There is a symmetry, you understand this? Now let's look at the particle placed at A. The particle at A, you can see that these distances are what? All equal. So force on A due to particle at C will be from A to C. Similarly, the force on A due to B will be from E to B. And you can clearly see that these two forces will be equal. Suppose I say this force is F, then this force is also F. So force on A due to B will be F, then force on A due to C is F, then force on A due to B is also F. Why? Because mass is the same and the distance is also same. It's an equilateral triangle, so distance between any 2 point masses is same. So if these two forces are equal, you have done in vector chapter that the resultant of these two equal forces, if there are two equal forces, the resultant acts along the what? Angular bisector. Clear? And if force is, each force is F and this angle is theta, then the resultant force R is equal to how much? 2F cos theta by 2. Clear? So this angle is 60 degree. Resultant of these two forces, children, let's see, will act like this along the angular bisector. Similarly, the resultant force on B will be acting along the angular bisector, and the resultant of force at C will also be acting along angular bisector. And if you extend these forces, they will meet at the what? Centroid of the triangle, that is O. Clear? So you can see that these 3 particles under mutual attraction are experiencing what? Central forces. And as they have a central force, velocity of A is VO, then B will also be VO, and C will also be VO. They all will have what? Equal velocity, and they will be beginning to move along what? Circular path like this, and like this. Clear? Beautiful problem. So each point mass is going to experience what? A net centripetal force, and which is resultant of the gravitational forces acting on the mass due to the remaining 2 particles. Clear? And this force will be directed toward the center. So if I ask what will be the radius of the circular path, the radius of the circular path could be either OA or could be OB or it could be OC. Clear? So we can easily calculate, draw a perpendicular from here. This angle is how much? 30 degree. So we know that this will be how much? A by 2. Let's call this point as D. So we can easily calculate OA will be equal to OB is equal to OC, and each will be the what? Radius. Clear? Now children, force between any 2 particles, F will be G m into m divided by a square, so it will be G m square by a square. And also net force on each particle is going to be the same. So let's calculate net force on particle A. I am using a shortcut formula. If there are 2 forces, F each, and angle between them is theta, then the resultant R is given by 2 F cos theta by 2. Parallelogram law of addition of forces. Then net force on each mass or each particle, F net will be equal to Tf cos theta by 2, and then that will be 2 into F is how much, children? Gm square by A square cos 60 by 2, right? So how much do you get? 2 into Gm square by A square cos 30, and how much cos 30, children? Root 3 by 2, 2 Gm square by A square into root 3 by 2, cancel out 2 and 2, so you get root 3 Gm square by A square. So how much you got net force? Net force F net will be root 3 Gm square by A square. So the first question, what is the net force? So we answered what is the net force, and children, this net force will be providing the necessary centripetal force. Clear? So the second part is saying what is the orbital velocity. So we have first part we did. Number 2, let orbital velocity is equal to VO. Then centripetal force will be mv naught square by r, and children we need to calculate how much is r. So calculation of r can be easily done here. Let's see. In triangle ADO, in triangle ADO, if I look at this triangle, children, then cos 30 will be equal to base. What is the base, children? E by 2 divided by radius is how much? R. So root 3 by 2 is equal to E by 2 R. Cancel out 2 and 2. Then how much is the radius? Radius is A divided by root 2, root 3. So we calculate how much will be the radius of the circular path, and once you know the radius of the circular path, then we'll come back here, centripetal force, and this centripetal force is going to be equal to the what? Net force. Clear? So therefore, I need some space. So children, we know the radius. So centripetal force will be force that will be F net will be equal to m v naught square divided by radius. And how much is radius? A by root 3. So this will be root 3 m v naught square by A. Clear? But you know that net centripetal force is provided by the what? Net gravitational force. Remember this. Hence, root 3 mv naught square by A equals to root 3 Gm square by A square. You can cancel out root 3, and from here also A is gone, M is gone. So if you solve, then V naught will be equal to root Gm by A, where M is the mass of each particle. So the concept of this problem is that net force on each point mass will be directed toward the center of the circular path, and the center circular path will be the centroid of the equilateral triangle. Clear? So this was a typical problem we discussed involving orbital velocity involving 3 masses. Alright? Now children, once you have understood orbital velocity, now we will be discussing gravitational field. What is gravitational field? We can denote it by I or E. You can use any of these symbols. Gravitational field. Let's understand what exactly is gravitational field. Suppose an object is passing into the what? Space. Space is a huge what? Expanse, and an object is flying. The object is flying uninterrupted and is not experiencing any force on it. So, as long as it is not experiencing any force, then there is a sensor on the object, and that will tell the controller somewhere on the ground or somewhere else in the universe that since the object which is moving and is not experiencing any force, therefore, there is no other massive object around it, right. Hence, he will conclude that there is no gravitational field. Let us see another scenario. An object is coming from outer space and experiencing no force, and the object is approaching what? Earth. And suddenly at some point of time, the object started experiencing Earth's gravitational pull. So, what will happen? The astronaut who is sitting inside the object, he will conclude, okay, now I am entering what? Earth's gravitational field. Imagine another situation, you are going away from Earth, it is difficult and difficult and difficult, but a time will come when you will feel that Earth's force is no longer acting upon you, and then you will say, okay, now we have crossed Earth's gravitational pull, right. Now, scientifically put, we will say that we have crossed Earth's gravitational field. So, what is the gravitational field? Gravitational field actually, children, is that region in space in which the gravitational force of an object can be felt, right. In other words, in which you can feel the presence of a mass. Suppose I cannot see any mass, suppose there is dark matter and I cannot see it, but if I am passing in close proximity and I am experiencing force, then I will say there is matter around me. So, gravitational field is the region in space in which the presence of an object can be felt. Clear? Let us define this. So, here children, gravitational field is that region in space in which the gravitational force can be experienced. Suppose there is a certain region in space here, and here I have a massive object, and a mass small m or m dash is moving. Up to here, it is not going to experience any force. But the moment it will cross into this region here, it will experience what? A force. And therefore, it will be concluded that this region is actually containing what? A gravitational field. So, gravitational field, suppose I am bringing an object from outer space into this room, and before entering this room, the object was not experiencing any gravitational force, then I will say outside this room there is no gravitational field. However, when I brought the object in this room, the object started experiencing gravitational force. So, I will say the gravitational field is confined to this room. So, I hope you have understood the concept. Now, how strong? So, you understand by this that gravitational field is nothing but measurement of the force experienced. Now, the stronger is the force, we say the greater is the intensity of the gravitational field, right. So, we have a very unique term that we refer to as intensity. Intensity here means how strong, and for how strong what will I do is, instead of taking mass m dash, I will take 1 kilogram mass. How much mass I will take? 1 kilogram mass, and it is also called test mass. So, if I bring a test mass here at some point here, then it will also experience a force. And then the force experienced by this mass is what we call as intensity of the gravitational field. So, children, what is intensity of gravitational field? Let us sum it up. The force experienced by a unit mass, and we will call it what mass? Test mass. The force experienced by unit mass at a given point is known as intensity of gravitational field at that point. Clear? But suppose you cannot find 1 kilogram mass, then you can take what? Mass m dash. Suppose I have a mass m here, and here I am putting a mass m0 or m dash at distance small, because distance will be taken from the center. No, this mass is m dash, and let's call it what, m0. So this mass m0 is going to experience a force because mass capital M. Suppose this force is F. So mass m0 is going to experience what force? F. So unit mass will experience what force? F by m0. So the force experienced by unit mass will be what? F by m0. Clear? So intensity of gravitational force at any point, intensity of gravitational field at any point is defined as the force experienced by a unit mass placed at that point. So let's define intensity of gravitational field at a given point. It is defined as the force experienced by unit mass at a given point, and children, you already know that the force experienced by unit mass is also called acceleration due to gravity. So intensity of gravitational field is nothing but what? Acceleration due to gravity. Clear? So I is equal to force by mass, or I becomes F by m0, where m0 is what mass? Test mass. Clear? Now let's derive an expression for intensity due to gravitational field. Okay? Intensity of gravitational field, gravitational field due to mass m, here a mass m, okay, at distance r. At what distance I want to calculate? At distance r. So F will be equal to, children, G m by r square, and m is how much? m0. So I will be writing this is what? m0. Therefore intensity I will be F by m0, and it will be 1 by m0 into G m0 by r square. Actually, we can cancel out m0 and m0. So intensity of gravitational field I will become Gm by r square. So intensity of gravitational field due to mass m at distance r will be how much? Gm by r square. Now suppose I want to calculate intensity of Earth's gravitational field, then due to Earth I will be Gme by r square. And you very well know this is what? Acceleration due to gravity. So intensity of gravitational field is nothing but what? Acceleration due to gravity. Suppose I want to find on the surface of Earth, under surface of Earth r will be equal to how much, children? Re. Then intensity of gravitational field will be Gme by re square, and children, I will be same as acceleration due to gravity on Earth's what? Surface. So intensity of gravitational field is a matter of experiencing the gravitational force on unit mass, and numerically it is equal to the what? Acceleration due to gravity. If you are moving in some region in space where you are not experiencing any force, so obviously intensity of gravitational field at any point in that particular region is how much? 0. So for gravitational field to exist, you must experience gravitational force. Okay?